Whenever you're ready, Priya and Deepak and team, Prashant, Mayank, all good at home?
Yeah, immediate family is all right. Extended family, there are quite a few people who are...
We are live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you to this weekly BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. For the last 14 and a half months, every Wednesday, we bring leaders from the education domain to talk to you, to tell you what's happening in the domain and how is the domain of education and learning itself being recreated. And there is some calibration happening there. Today, we have a set of very high-powered guests on the show, people who worked in India, who worked abroad, people who built institutions from scratch. So let me start by introducing Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy. He's the Vice Chancellor of Kriya University, which has become a very preferred destination for students. I know it firsthand when I talk to my nieces and my daughter. They tell me how much they value Kriya University. Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy joined there 6 years back. He's had a very successful stint, and he's going back to the US, to the university from where he came from. But till 30th June 2021, he continues to be the Vice Chancellor of the Kriya University. So welcome, Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy. We also have Mr. Raghav Gupta, with the technology becoming so important in the way education is being given to students and how the stakeholders are responding to technology and adopting to technology. Mr. Raghav Gupta, who's the MD for India and SAARC for Coursera, is an important stakeholder in this changing milieu. Welcome, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. Thank you, Anurag.
Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, again, doesn't really need an introduction to this August gathering of people who are into the educational ecosystem. Thank you, Dr. Sancheti, for making time. And it's, again, a pleasure to have you on the show. We've had you on the show last year, and I'm glad you're here again. Last but not the least, we have Professor Nagaraj. Again, he doesn't really need an introduction. Again, he's been part of our initiatives over the last few years. This is the 5th year of the education editorial product. So thank you so much, Professor Nagaraj. Today we're talking about Education 4.0. And basically, when we say Education 4.0, we're talking about the course curricula. We're talking about employability. And we are talking about...
Sorry to interrupt. I think you might have missed Dr. Virendra Kumar from IT.
Yes, of course. Sorry. So pardon me with the situation at home. There are other things also on the mind. So apologies, Professor Virendra Kumar. I hope you'll forgive me. They say to err is human, to forgive is divine. So here's your chance of divinity by forgiving me. Thank you so much. I enjoyed my conversation with you. Last time I chatted with you, and what you were doing at IIT Kharagpur, especially in terms of the low-cost innovation that you were doing and the help you did in creating some solutions for COVID. So I remember that conversation very, very distinct in my mind. So thank you so much. And I hope you'll forgive me for forgetting to introduce you.
Thank you very much, and namaskar to all of you.
Thank you so much. Let me start with Professor Sundar Ramaswamy and ask him, you've been part of building an institution. How has education changed, and how are educational institutions making sure that they impart learning, but they enhance employability, especially in the context of last 15 months?
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Anurag, and thank you for inviting me. And it's good to be part of this very important conversation, but also have very distinct panelists. I want to start with 3 points. I come from this not just as an educationist and a vice chancellor, but also my professional life as a development economist. And we are going through and have been going through the 4th industrial revolution. And we are not yet seen the end of this. And we know that with the first industrial revolution being in the mid 18th century, with the steam and power being generated by that, and then the second with electricity and so on. And now we are in the midst of this fascinating collision of AI, machine learning, Internet of Things. And that was before the pandemic, quite some time, and it's continuing on. The reason I start with that is what we have also noticed, at least in my profession as economists, is that there is starting to be a disconnect between wealth and jobs because of the increasing technology replacing humans. That has always been going on for centuries. Now it's accelerated at a pace that is actually quite startling in some ways. So I want to sort of put that as one context, that where are the jobs of the future going to come from? And we are in the midst of this transition. Post-pandemic, we will have to continue to figure that out. What makes this even more acute is the fact that 8 billion people inhabit this planet. So the pressure on jobs is that never been. So to put that even sharper, there's a chart, you can Google this. I think the world demographers have created the population chart. And what was quite stunning to me was to see it, that the chart of world population pretty much hugs the x-axis from time immemorial to 1950. And then there is a huge spike. And in the last 71 years, I have the data from 2017. So it's about 3-4 years old. So it's only become worse. That there are more people living on the planet today than everyone who's born and died from time immemorial to 1950. So just to let that sink in, there are more people living today, meaning in the last 71 years, than everyone who's born and died from time immemorial to 1950. The reason I make this is because that many more jobs are needed. It also can mean that that many more brains are thrown at problems, right? I don't want to suggest that people are inherently could be a problem. They can also be wonderful problem solvers. But it is the reality that we need to find jobs, or they will have to find jobs for themselves as entrepreneurs and so on. But that's the reality. And nowhere in the humanities history do we have so many people contending for things. The second point is, we take it for granted at a very consumer level, even though technology has been my first point. But it's only in 2007 that the iPhone becomes an instrument of choice. In fact, Androids don't even come on the scene till after that. So it's a very literally in 13 years. It's not in my parents' lifetime. It's in literally our lifetime it's happening. And this is the generation of kids who are grown up in the smartphone era. The reason that becomes important is because now, unlike when I was going to school, when my teachers thought my brain was an empty vessel into which they poured information, now pretty much information is available at the touch of a key for everyone who's got a smartphone and an internet connection, which means the whole notion of what is it to be educated and what is knowledge versus what is information has to change. No longer can teachers just deliver information. It's really the whole rubric of how do I reimagine learning? How do I learn to learn? Because gone are the days when we just focus on what to learn, which is what I remember doing in school, is what to learn and I regurgitate it and I get my marks. Now it's all about how to learn, how to make the connections, how to make the signal from the noise, how to see patterns in data. So that is a huge change in the last 15 years. And I'm just talking of sort of the median school. I mean, things 20, 30 years ago, there were schools that were pushing the frontiers. I'm just talking the average school and the average kid now having access to the wealth of information through Google and so on. So what is information, what is knowledge, and how does teaching prepare you for life? I think is my second big point. And I still toggle between wanting to prepare students for jobs and careers. We know that students will not just change 5-6 jobs, they may change 5-6 careers. And given the life expectancy that people are not dying at 50 and 60, despite the COVID times, they're living up to 77, 80, which means they may change multiple careers by the time they get out, which means issues of adult learning, continuous learning. How do I switch careers? How do I prepare them for? So the whole model of, 12 years in school, 3 years in college, 2 years in postgraduate, and then go and get a job or retire. Now it might be multiple careers. So I think education itself is under onslaught of how do we change all that to prepare them for, on the one hand, jobs and careers. And this is my last point. I also think it's important that we shouldn't take our eye off, and especially I coming from a liberal arts, liberal thinking in university, but I think it should be true for any university. We hopefully are preparing students for life. to be good citizens, to be good voters. So it's not just about jobs. I mean, I don't want to reduce education to being only utilitarian. That is, I get a degree so that I can get a job, because you're also preparing them to be good humans and to be resilient, to be adaptable, to change, to be good community members. So I think education still has to serve that purpose in order to not only prepare them to get jobs and prepare them for careers, but also prepare them to be good humans. I mean, I think there are other institutions in life that will do it. Family does it, religious institutions do it, civic bodies do it, but education should not take its eye off and think that it's only careerist and it's only about so simple a line between degree and job. I think we should prepare them for handling life itself. I always sort of have commented in the last year or so, when we sat down and wrote the mission statement of Kriya in 2017, the first line is to prepare humanity for an unpredictable world. And I joke with my students in a very odd sense that we didn't expect the year 2020 and 21 to happen. I mean, you can't get any more unpredictable than what we are living through. But in 2017, the reason we wrote that mission is because this is the world with or without the pandemic, the unpredictability of how do we prepare them. So yes, jobs are important. Yes, careers are important, but there's a larger purpose for education. And let me end with that and then open it.
Thank you so much. And, you know, we've had this discussion in the past and other eminent leaders have pointed to this, but for eloquently raising the purpose of education and making it philosophical and is very important. And then in the second round, we'll get into more brass tacks. So thank you for bringing a philosophical point of view. And I fully agree with it, that it should be about learning. It should be about larger impact. Employability is one part of that. So thank you for bringing that out beautifully. Let me bring in Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, who's the Vice Chancellor of the Marwari University. Dr. Sancheti, your point of view on Education 4.0 and how do we make sure the course curricula is right, it is futuristic, and what are we doing to be able to implement that in the universities and institutions that we are part of?
Thank you, Anuragji. Thank you, Dr. Ramaswamy, for setting the tone. I think like Industry 4.0, we do have Education 4.0, but for me, this number or generation is not important. The change or the philosophy it brings is most important. And that change happens to be, it is going to be the student-centric policy. It is going to be a student-centric approach. It would be an approach which will make a shift from what we know as generally as university or as vice chancellors or teachers, we try to teach our students what we want to teach them. Whereas the new philosophy should be the students should learn what they want to learn. I think the learnability was emphasized just now, and there is no doubt it has to be learnability. But it will not be limited to learnability. Learnability may still take you from information to knowledge that you know something, you have learned something. But then you need to move up the order, up the channel by developing wisdom. And if you have developed wisdom about something which you can contribute, probably you need to see the relevance. I may be the nuclear scientist and doing something in the domain where I can do destruction is no use or relevance. And even if the relevance is there, am I able to make an impact? So there are many, many aspects which we need to deliver to our dear students. And therefore, I would say that today's knowledge delivery or education delivery, or what we generally call employability or skill, they are not limited to a certain course or certain curriculum which we define. In fact, if I remember, in last 10 years, we have moved down for an engineering degree, moved down from 210 or 220 credits to 160 credits. We have removed almost 1/4 of credits for the simple reason that the simple classroom teaching would not suffice in delivering what we want to deliver because the dimensions are much more. So what we really need to do academically would be a student-centric curriculum, which I said that they would learn what they want to learn. And even if I make the student-centric curriculum, I should be having more openness. When I say openness, it may be towards mix of theory, practice, maybe skills, maybe vocational courses, maybe on design, maybe on something which I want, or maybe if I'm looking for jobs, more emphasis on hands-on, which I can do and deliver, or maybe become more employable. But if I'm not, let's say, for a job, but I want to do research in pure mathematics, probably I should be given a research orientation. So that openness is what I'm talking. All of us, 6 of us who are speaking here, can be in the same class. Let's presume that. But our teachers can deal with each one of us in a different way. I think that is what is the student centricity for me. I may be a slow learner, you may be a fast learner, and both will be handled. And not only handled, handling probably is a poor word here. I would say that we will be mentored according to personalized education, coaching, delivery, everything will be required. So that's as far as the academic part is concerned, in my opinion, but that would not suffice. Since most of us are concerned about employability, I must say that classroom activities are just not enough and sufficient. I can give you dozens of examples very well known to me who were class toppers, otherwise generally very presentable, but they were not the ones who got the best jobs or the first jobs of their classes or whatever. What you really require is beyond curricular things, extracurricular and co-curricular aspects, which are becoming more and more important, especially if you're looking for jobs. And that is what we need to deliver, whether it is the professional bodies, whether it is the experience through projects and developments, whether it is the participation in hackathons or internships and training slots, or whether it is that you can say that the completion of certain special courses from reputed organizations. All those things should be decided, done based on the needs or the direction in which they want to go. And it is very obvious that the flexibility is to be given the course correction. For example, last 1.5 years, we are facing COVID. No curriculum, no plan would have decided or planned something according to a situation which will be a COVID situation that we'll be able to steer through. So you need high degree of flexibility, how to steer in these circumstances. An engineer who wanted to become an engineer during the COVID situation might have taken a different course, that I want to serve the humanity and want to go into the medical domain and do something. Another one possibly would go in some another direction. So they should be allowed to change the course and the direction. And that is what the student centricity or education 4.0 is going to deliver. Fortunately, schemes like ABC, the Academic Bank of Credit, which is going to be the mainstay for all education 4.0, is already kind of announced. It's there on the UGC website. The rules and regulations have been made. It is now for us to understand it, implement it. But one thing which will be highly desirable to do that would be that the counseling of students. All of a sudden, you're opening floodgates that they can do whatever they want to do and however they want to do. But if they don't get guided, probably the chances are some of them may make mistakes. So probably a lot of hand-holding. So teacher's role would change. Not only a teacher who delivers the content, but it should be a mentor, it should be a friend, it should be an entrepreneur, it should be a guide. But more importantly, teacher himself or herself should be a co-learner. So that is how the education space is going to empower the students in times to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's a beautiful word used, mentoring. And I keep saying that people like me, I'm not sure about you, we need to be reverse mentored by younger people, people who know technology better, or millennials, because there are skills to be learned from them. There is a worldview to be learned from them. And that's also a real worldview. So our view may be the one version of that, but there's another version. So thank you for bringing that in. While I'll bring in Professor Virendra Kumar Tiwari, who's the director of IIT Kharagpur, and I enjoyed my last conversation with him, and also bring in Professor Nagaraj R, who's the Vice Chancellor of the Kala Salingam University. But let me, we've heard two educationists. Let me bring in an edutech player who possibly may supplement some of the things you've said through examples and data, but also add on some layers of what it should be. Raghav, your perspective.
Absolutely. Happy to share my thoughts, Dr. Anurag. And, we're all meeting in the overhang of COVID. And I think as we were chatting before the panel started, I think to get the mind off what's happening around us is possibly helpful. But these are stressful times for sure. So I want to say, just as a little bit of context, so we work as a company with about 2,000 businesses and about 400 governments around the world. Many of them are in India. And then we work with many campuses as well. And I want to echo what...
and last time I was doing a conversation, you said 6,600 universities in India, or 6,600 educational institutes, including universities.
That's right. That's right. In India as well as around the world. And I wanted to echo what Professor Sundar said, what Dr. Sandeep Sancheti said as well, that I think we're also seeing a lot of changes happening in businesses around the world. And, you know, the current wave of COVID is possibly going to accelerate that for some of us in India. Even before the current wave, we were talking about for industry, the core skills have been changing. You know, many of the companies that we work with, whether it's a bank in India or a technology company in India or an auto company in India, everybody's accelerating digitization because, you know, we are all working from home and digitization has accelerated significantly. And I was saying this even before the current COVID wave, that for companies like us, we're already saying that work from home is not going to go away whenever COVID goes away. This is a permanent shift in how working professionals work. My own company has said that, you know, we'll probably come to office one day in 1 week or in 2 weeks, and the rest of the time we'll all continue to work from home or wherever we might be. And I think this is changing some of the fundamental skills and competencies that working professionals have in the country. And Anuragji, I know I've shared this with you earlier. One of the things that we looked at, and I think I find it fascinating, is millions of working professionals on the Coursera platform. What did they learn in 2019? How was that different in 2020? And I wonder what data will tell us as we start looking at 2021, given what we are seeing around us. But we saw in 2019 that a lot of what millions of people learned on our platform was largely hard functional skills. You know, so either people learned technology or they learned
Python.
They learned Python, they learned artificial intelligence, they learned supply chains, they learned, you know, cloud computing, and they learned a little bit about business strategy and communication. But then last year, top skill was writing. Number 4 was mindfulness, meditation, gratitude, kindness, listening, and so on. And it's telling us that in working professionals in the future, essential skills and competencies are going to be digital and they're going to be human as well. And I wonder how some of this needs to result in implications for higher education, because I think we are seeing that the kind of skills and competencies that students will need in the future, I think the pandemic is changing those very, very significantly. And we don't know exactly what those skills will look like. The other thing which I looked at, which I think is quite fascinating, is especially in a country like ours, where the number of institutions who are really high quality, you know, and many of them are here on this panel, but the number of average quality institutions is very large as well. And there's this recent study which is out, which says that if a student who's graduating is underemployed, not unemployed, underemployed on graduation, the impact on their livelihood stays for the next 10 years. So the quality of the employment that a student receives on graduation, and I completely echo what Professor Sundar said, that higher education is not just preparing students for their first job, but the reality is that the impact of that first job stays for the next 10 years. If you are underemployed when you graduate, you will continue to earn much lesser than your peers, your colleagues for the next 10 years. That's the kind of implication that that has. And I think given some of this context, our work with higher education has told us 3 simple points. I think the education that we're bringing to students in the country needs to continue to be high quality. I don't think we have enough high quality institutions in the country. I think what has changed is yesterday that education came only from my faculty, my institution. But today and tomorrow, that education could come from my faculty, but also from faculty from, you know, another institution, you know, from IIT Kharagpur, from CREA, or from Michigan or Stanford. It could also come from companies. You know, Google is teaching a lot of people, IBM is teaching a lot of people. So it could be education coming from companies. I do think this education needs to be relevant for the future of work. And I think along with theoretical knowledge, we will see an explosion in the amount of hands-on learning as well. And by that, what I mean is we are seeing that almost every professional in the working space needs to learn many softwares. You know, I'm not a computer science person myself, but I think I use 12 or 13 tools on a day-to-day basis. And almost every discipline in education will need to learn many, many softwares. And I think that's where we will see an explosion in hands-on learning as well. So yeah, so those are some slightly not very structured, but my initial thoughts. But
Thank you so much. I think it's good to educationists, somebody who's an edutech player. Now, again, let me bring in the two other leaders and the educationists on the panel. Let me bring in Professor Virendra who's the director of IIT Kharagpur, into the conversation on his opening comments on how the course curricula should change to be able to make students more employable. And are changing, because, you know, a lot is being discussed. I hope a lot is changing on the ground. Professor Tiwari?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Very, very clearly.
Oh, okay, very good. Namaskar to all of you. In fact, I was enjoying the talk, all the three speakers before me. And I like the last line, yes, hands-on learning in various aspects, particularly AI, ML and all that. I tell you, in fact, I was thinking that had this pandemic been there 10 years back, I think all our schools and colleges would have been at a very bad situation. See, the things that because digital and many of us were used to, suddenly when this pandemic came 2020, we could switch over to the online education, even the schools and the colleges. Now, when we are talking of a situation like this, whether the course curriculum has to be as compared to employability, I think I don't know. I think in universities also must be happening. But in IIT, I can tell you that every 3 years we change the course curriculum to tune with what is required by the industry, what is required in the niche areas of research in different branches. And also, I was listening to one of our professor, I think Professor Sandeep Chand, that the course, the credits, yes, credits also. I liked what he was talking. True. In fact, we are thinking today about the learning, not exactly that, okay, he has to pick up and get a degree and get a job. In the learning centric, true, student centric, and student has to be learning, he must be a good human being. And we are talking, if you go back to what Swamiji said long back, the man making and character building. So these are the things which are very important when we are talking of course curriculum, while we are comparing with the employability or not employability. Employability comes slightly later, because many a times, if you have seen in the universities and the colleges and also in IIT, we have seen that some of the fellows who are not that good at their subjects, but in the interview, they do it very smartly. They put themselves very smartly. They answer the questions. They the questions, even if they do not know, approach in a very dramatic way and take the whole board along with them. So many, I have found out myself I was associated with the training and placement for about 15 years in my institute as well. So I can tell you that those things are not that much correlated, that exactly if somebody is good, curriculum followed and very good at studies, he will definitely take up the best job and all that. So what is important if this fellow gets a knowledge and learning out of various other things beyond the classroom. And I can tell you that it must be happening at other places also. Beyond the classroom, the students learn 70% of the learning what happens, not the other way around. In fact, because they meet the student, their friends in the hostels, the friends in the technology students, Gymkhana, and other places. They have their various activities in the clubs which they have, for example, music clubs or the robotic clubs or the others. So they learn from each other much better from their peers, in the sense that maybe seniors, maybe juniors, and that learning is far better. So we can say that the learning which the students get and the employability are not directly connected. What is connected is how smart the fellow has learned certain tracks of handling situations when people are around him, and how the curriculum. Now there are another part of it. If you talk of some of the core jobs, there they ask for some of the important things. Now those fellows who are really good at, they are not in a position to convey because of the communication skills. So what is important in the curriculum when we are talking of this is the communication skills of the students. I would say that weaker, some of the academically weaker students who are largely about 40% of the class. Now there is a problem for these people to be employability. Whereas when we are talking of the top of the class, there is one group, and bottom of the class, particularly when you take latter half of that, we have a problem of communication. The soft skills are not to the extent. Even if we are trying at various places, I'm sure universities must be also trying. We are also trying, but there is a communication gap because of the many of the languages in which they have come after the class 10+2, when they have come over here. And of course, people are being talking of the language education and all that. But I think there is the effect of that when they come over here. And hence, the employability, this factor also comes into play when we are talking of the course curriculum, the learning aspect of the candidate, and the feeling that we should be having a good job, greater job, bigger job. Now, you go to the people who come over here to go to the other places for recruiters. Recruiters are looking for the gray material in the student. Or they think that, okay, if these fellows are having a gray material, we will be able to mend them as per our requirement. So even many times what we do, we ask them that, okay, please give your presentation. And after that, we say that, look, these are the areas, these are the topics which the students have covered. These are the subjects or the projects which the students have done. So if this matches, then they get very excited and take those students, and then it continues. So there are various aspects when we are talking of the course curriculum. It has to be seen that as I liked also that, yes, now the student should be wanting to learn anything. What we have done at IIT Kharagpur, we have allowed, we have here Academy of Folk and Folk Arts. There we have said that even one person, a student doesn't want, he can take a 3-credit course on any music, because what we are trying to build a good human being. And that sort of activity will make him think in a calm way about any problem. So that we have, we have a Center for Happiness. There also we have started microcredit courses, which they can learn. At the same time, we have Academy of Leadership. There also we are churning the students. We are talking to them that, look, it is the leadership quality which will earn you anywhere. Even if you are in the class, you must demonstrate the leadership value when you can take a class of 100 or 150 students. You have to take them along with you if you want to disseminate some information. And over and above, you see, the information, even if the curriculum is very well, it depends on that the quality of delivery that the teacher is giving to the students, which is very important. Because there are many, I may teach a student, I would say that, okay, there should be 80% attendance and you should listen to all my classes. He may say, okay, I have a better course available internet from such and such university, and I would like to follow that. I think there has to be, this is a challenge to the teacher concerned. He must think that, yes, I have to make the knowledge. If there are 36 chapters in a particular course or a subject, he should be able to tell why these 36 key words or the key learnings are there, how they are there, how they will be employed, and what are the areas in which he can employ that. So it is very important how we are delivering. It is very important how the person gets knowledge from his peers. It also depends on what sort of the requirement the industry has. And I think the flexibility of the curriculum which the students should be able to go to any course. I think with this, I will
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Tiwari. I remember last time I spoke to you, which was almost 3-4 months back. COVID had subsided, and you told us on how you were able to build apps and devices at low cost, which helped people during COVID times. So this was really on the job training, so to say. It was practical, usage of the learnings that students had on the campus. Let me bring in Professor Nagaraj. Professor Nagaraj, your take on how do we enhance employability, especially in the context of last 14 odd months?
Thank you very much, Mr. Anurag. It has been definitely painful the last 14 months. We all went into the pandemic without, as somebody said, without any preparation. You had a lockdown and you had to just get into it. But before actually, I would like to just add on to what my colleagues have been talking about. Most of them spoke about the philosophical aspect of how it can be dealt. I, being from a a university which is set up in the rural precincts of India. We always, the graduates here definitely would look for a better job prospect, and definitely we all hope that any graduation must lead to gainful employment. Keeping that in mind, being from a predominantly engineering university, we always want our graduates to be employed, and always when we look at those percentages, how many get into employment and how many go into higher studies and how many go into the entrepreneurial setup now, we see that roughly about 92% get into jobs, and very few, there are about 5 to 6% going into higher education, and roughly another 2 to 3% going into entrepreneurial initiatives. So the onus on the university is definitely to cater to the requirements of these 90% odd graduating students every year, how you would place them. And very aptly, your theme for today's discussion is how you, bridge the learning gaps and make them employable so that they are placed in better companies with better job profiles. I see this problem. We can answer this philosophically. We can say we can do a lot of things philosophically, but India being a large country and wherein we are churning out large number of graduates every year, the philosophical approach, yes, is there and shall be there and will guide us through any challenge. But there are a few things which we need to do based on the situation. That is because employment becomes very, very important to any person who is graduating out of. There are many first graduates from this part of the country. So obviously employment becomes very, very important to them. And as university, what is that we can do so that we can nurture their aspirations and get them a better place? That is what most of the time we look towards. We always see, I personally, being into academics, see that the learning gaps obviously can be bridged through curricular interventions and non-curricular interventions. My fellow panelists have already spoken that you do have several curricular interventions. You revise your curriculums every 3 years or every 4 years based on the span of the course. And then you try and bring in a lot of new courses which industry wants. But my take on this is, suppose say I have a graduate in mechanical engineer. Am I able to train mechanical engineering graduates in all novices of mechanical engineering? Yes, that is what I would like to look into basically, because I may give him the basics of mathematics, I may give him the basics of physics, I may give him basics of chemistry if he is working in material science, or I may train him in some certain domain-specific, courses. But to make him, employable, what is that any university has to do, or what is that any higher education institution has to do, is basically see whether we can establish those collaborations with the employers, the mass employers. That is where we have a major intervention in terms of having collaborative graduate programs. We collaborate with industries to offer graduate programs to the students. That is because being a university, you have the flexibility of your curriculum, and thereby collaborating with industry to an extent, not to complete, to an extent tries to solve the problem of the learning gaps. For example, we have tied up with IBM for computer science engineering. We might have tied up with Siemens for mechanical engineering. We might have tied up with Synopsys for electronics and communication engineering. We have several such interventions. Along with that,
right. I think we have some connectivity issue on the end of Professor Nagaraj. While we can get him back, let me bring in, I think there is some commonality in what all of you are saying. And the beauty about technology is that things like this happen. Again, Dr. Tiwari is joined again, but life goes on. While we'll have Professor Nagaraj back again.
I've come back.
Yes,
come back.
Yes. Go ahead, complete it.
Sorry for, I think there was a network issue.
No, that's okay.
So what I was trying to tell is, in addition to these curricular interventions, we do a lot of non-curricular interventions in times of, basically, since the theme of discussion is employability, enhancing employability of students, we need to look into how you make them better employable, wherein you add a lot of certification programs into their curriculum. For example, we have tied up with SAP Labs for SAP certification for all our circuit branch students, and also for the students in MBA and mechanical engineering. Now, this intervention, what happens is the SAP certified professional obviously is more sought after. It could be in the IT or IT enabled, or it could be in the hard core engineering branches. So they find their positions there. Plus, you need to have a lot of other certification programs. This I'm talking about to enhance the technical skills of the students. The other part, my fellow panelists have already dealt with in detail. Communication skills, soft skills are all there. But in addition to all these things, I see the person who is going to deliver all these things also needs to be trained. And there should be a very, very focused faculty development programs which happens across the universities, so that your faculty is capable of offering the courses. You may add in any number of newer courses, any number of high-tech courses into the system, because these are all people who would have graduated 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago. Even if they are senior teachers in the departments, we should insist that these teachers go through the faculty development programs and become capable of offering these new era courses to our students. So these are all a few interventions that can be done.
Thank you so much. Yeah. There are already 6 odd questions. I just want to add to, I think we're talking about employability for at least the last 2 decades. I've been part of conversations on course curricula, but I think in the last 15 months, as Raghav rightly said, that the shift of the kind of courses being taken has shifted from, hardcore skills to soft skills. And as a lot of us are saying that soft skills are the real skills. So, Raghav, so I think that shift has started to happen. The shift is real. That's what I'd say. Let me ask you very specific questions. Professor Sundar Ramaswamy, let me ask you, at Kriya, what did you do to be able to embrace the philosophy that you evangelized today?
So, because Kriya was, we were given the liberty to set it up from scratch, Dr. Anurag, we wanted to push what we thought, it's enshrined in the logo right next to my face, called interwoven learning. So we were able to design a curriculum that weaves together, whether it's arts and science, literature and humanities, the past and the present, East and the West. So we are able to build it from the scratch, hire faculty who buy into this. We don't have departments, because the idea is that students have to be both specialized in some subject because it's important, but they need to be open to learnings from other disciplines, and faculty need to guide them. And so the curriculum is open that way. At the same time, the co-curriculum and the extra curriculum that other panelists have talked about are also woven in to this program design, so that the student who's coming through, whether they're majoring in physics or economics or history, looks at it very differently than when I went through university 30 years ago when I got an economics degree, because of the way in which they're blending other disciplines, other experiences, holding in internships, practicums, all of it is part of the overall 3-year life cycle of a student. And I think it starts from also the understanding that from day one, students learn a lot from faculty, and faculty are there, as I've said in my opening remarks, as guides, as coaches, not just conveyors of information. But because the way we admit students, which is also very interestingly different, we just don't look at one standard exam or 12th board exams. It's a very holistic approach. They also, what I found, they learn a lot from their peers. And I think this happens in many, many institutions. But I think that learning is also important in terms of how we prepare them for internships or how we prepare them for jobs post-graduation. Anurag, are you back?
Seems like he might be back, but video and audio seem to be off for the moment.
Okay.
Maybe let's wait for a few seconds.
Sure.
Yes, I hope you can.
Your voice is breaking, Anurag.
I hope you can hear me.
Ragji, you may please keep the video off, and audio should be all right, in my opinion. So.
I wonder if we have someone else from business world who could either take over, or maybe we can just wait for a moment for Anurag to be back. BW team, do any of you want to take over?
Fine, I'll make a point. Let's continue. I lose time. And
yeah, please go ahead.
Since our focus in this panel discussion is on employability, I would like to make a very different point. Every time we discuss employability, we talk about what students could do and should do, or what educational institutions should do or could do. What are the other agencies, let's say Coursera, how are they able to contribute? I think we keep talking about all those points time and again. But the real essence of employability planning or employability success in employability is missing. I would like to know from the panel or the experts here or anyone, which is the agency in the country which is telling where are the jobs available? How many jobs will be required 5 years down the line in which domain of engineering or science or commerce or management? And within that, what kind of specialization? Let's say if it is management, is it HR or finance or is it marketing or whatever? Those kind of plannings are completely missing in this country, in my opinion. Whether it is AICT or UGC or new HESI, which will come up, or is it going to be the industry bodies like CII, SOCHM, FICCI? Someone will have to bell this cat by saying, we need probably 10,000 mechanical engineers, but we possibly need 1 million computer engineers, which might be there. NASSCOM was the only body which attempted something of this kind 10 years back. But even now, we find that their projections are missing. Now, it is something like that we are all starting a journey called engineering or called any professional education. But what will be our end goal? We do not know, because the goalposts are shifting, or rather the goalposts are not there. They have not been defined. So keep this in mind, that for employability, we also need to know which industry, which sector, at what level we need employability to be coming to the fore. Now that component is missing. All our agencies are now starting controlling us and driving us in a certain way, rather than doing the real part of what is needed in the country and how much is needed and when is it needed. So hopefully someone would listen to these points.
Yes, thank you. My colleague Vasudha is there, Raghav. I could hear you because I have you on my app, so I can hear everything, even for the timer loss. You're asking anybody from BW could take over. Vasudha was there, but I don't think she was mentally ready to take over. And I heard, and you asked the right question, Dr. Sancheti, in terms of, estimating where are the jobs, what kind of skills. I think there is an opportunity. Maybe we should do a study like that. It may mean massive deployment, but it will be of value, or collaborate with someone. But Dr. Ramaswamy, you answered my question. And let me ask Professor Nagaraj, because I started with him last in the first round. Professor Nagaraj, if you had to change one or two things about what you do in your university as you make your university more futuristic, what would those be?
See, basically, as we discussed, the philosophy of a higher educational institute shall be same and shall remain same. And we are all talking about learner-centric environment. And when we say learner-centric, how much are we caring for those large number of students getting into our universities is one thing that all of us need to look into. Should it be a degree churning machine, or it should be something which is going to contribute to the GDP of the country? That is what we need to look into there. And in that, what I see is somebody pointed out slow learner, fast learner, medium level learner, and all these things. How are we building how are we trying to nurture the aspirations of each and every student getting into our university is what all of us need to look into. He could be coming from various socio-economic backgrounds. India is a large country. Our students may be coming from several backgrounds. Are we, as higher educational institutions, capable of nurturing aspirations of each of these students who are getting into our systems? That is what we are looking towards. It could be in terms of quality interventions, or it could be interventions in terms of how you make your faculty body, because faculty body I see as very, very important, vehicle in between what we plan versus what we deliver. And I see that the faculty body needs to be empowered, and empowered to the best possible way. Not only in terms of the financial things, but also in terms of training them. As we say, a student has to be a lifelong learner. We should also make our faculty also lifelong learners, so that they are able to face any of these situations which arise suddenly, or maybe we envisage these situations and plan accordingly. That is what I see the whole thing as.
Okay, one of the more it's debated privately, but it's never spoken of, is the impact of curricula on first employability and then its impact over a period of time. There is no study to kind of say that if these kind of curricula were there, it helped in first employability, and then because of those skills, the impact over a long period of career was better. Raghav, is there a way to kind of demonstrate that? Should there be a linkage which then helps you formulate what kind of course or courses one should take?
There's been some work that we've done on this, Anurag. I don't think we've done this at a higher education level, but we've done this for industry. Last year, we released the second edition of what we call the Global Skills Index. And as a part of that, we looked at 10 industries. We looked at 60 countries. And we said, in the domains of business, technology, and data science, how do these 60 countries and 10 industries fare in terms of skills? And we were able to benchmark, because there are about 11 million learners on Coursera in India. We were able to benchmark how a lot of Indian technology companies, Indian financial services companies perform compared to peers around the world, and where is India stronger, where might be India weaker, and then what might be a path to bridge those gaps. The other thing that we've done very recently, in fact, about 2 weeks ago, is we released a report called the Unbounded University, and I think it might be quite relevant for the audience on today's panel. What we did in the Unbounded University is we said, let's look at a student and what is the likely job the student might do in the future, right? So if I'm an MBA student doing a specialization in digital marketing, let's compare the skills of this student with those of a working professional who's doing the job that this particular student might aspire to in the future. And we've been able to then point out where are the gaps quite large at a student body level. And it gives us a lot of insight to say, where should higher education be focusing on, and where are some of the biggest gaps between working professionals and students in higher education. I'm happy to kind of add the link to this Unbounded University report in the chat as well, if anybody would like to refer to this.
Sure, and we'd like to do a deep dive editorially. I'd like to ask one question to everyone and then bring in my editorial colleague Vasudha Mukherjee to ask a few questions. Dr. Sancheti, I want to ask you a very pointed question. Now, clearly, why does a student need to come to a university? Why can't they just go to any edtech platform? I know the answer. Professor Tiwari talked, Dr. Virendra Kumar Tiwari talked about on-campus learning, real-life interactions. Do you think there'll be a day when we have a university on a cloud? We don't need a campus, and maybe students don't need to come to a traditional university. So the question I'm asking, what is the university of the future?
You are very right in putting this question to all of us. And I must say that I've been kind of thinking about these aspects for quite some time. And for last 3 years, I've been kind of answering these also. 3 years back, precisely, I warned my colleagues that we may cease to exist if we don't behave. I use the word behave because we were not changing at that time. But today we have started changing. We have started behaving because of COVID and technology both. The point is, I did say a word called ABC. And if you read that carefully, you'll probably understand everything in education is now going to be credit-based. There will be nothing called degree, diploma, certificate, which is essential. I have earned credits for this digital marketing. Maybe Raghavji will find Sandeep Sancheti employable because he knows digital marketing and he'll take me. He'll not bother about my degree. And therefore, that differentiation between an edtech company and university is well known to us, and that is a university can give degree and an edtech company cannot give the degree. However, both of them are doing the same job of training, skilling, educating, delivering knowledge, or delivering competence, or giving whatever. So the differentiation is going to change. And if we do not retain the value in terms of what we do beyond the classroom, beyond the courses which we deliver, I think we will start losing our place to a certain extent. That is going to be important. Number two, why we are going to be a little less present in the educational spaces. I think there was a word used for adult learner. I possibly would use a matured learner, a term for that, because adult was people who were not educated. In Indian context, it was used very much for that. So for matured learner, from 25 to 75, if I have to serve and I have to survive, I cannot go and sit in the class. Now that chunk will be very, very big in terms of the education space. They cannot come and follow the university style of education between 25 to 75, that they'll attend the classes, 80% attendance and do this way, that way, cannot drop. And if they fail in one subject, they'll not get something. All that will this thing be impacting them. And therefore, the universities of the future, I would say their boundaries will be punctured. They may cease to exist if they don't change with the time or sync in with the changing requirements which are there. And they will have to cater to the new generation of learners, which we'll call matured learners in times to come. And of course, new generational degrees will also be required. No one would be interested to call a degree as purely engineering. I think there was an example given that you are allowed to learn music while you are doing education in IIT Kharagpur. If I'm doing many such courses, I should be getting a degree called Bachelor of Liberal Education rather than engineering or science or commerce or arts. I think all that will have to happen. Engineering degrees will have to be branchless or interdisciplinary engineering, and so would be the case with many of the domains. So these are the changes which universities will require if they have to compete and survive in future against the edtech companies who can pump a lot of money and who can make the changes much faster.
Thank you so much. My last question to Dr. Virendra Kumar Tiwari. Dr. Tiwari, if we were to talk to you 12 months from now, in terms of your own course curricula, what changes will we see?
The course curriculum, in fact, last year itself we have changed and we are following on that. In fact, any student who has entered into IIT Kharagpur, whether he is UG, PG or research scholar, he will have to undergo a compulsory course on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Because that is going to be the future for next 25, 30 years. In any branch of engineering for that matter, he will be able to allow that. At the same time, we have given a lot of flexibility to him that certain amount of course he will have to do for getting the degree in that particular branch. and the breadth courses and some of the other courses which he likes, he can take from any department whatsoever, as I told earlier. So this is another thing which we have done. At the same time, we have also talked of that we are talking of the teaching and learning center. In fact, we have just discussed, and we are going to have a teaching learning center where our young teachers who are very bright, but when they go for teaching, the teaching is not challenging to the young friend. I was listening to Professor Sancheti. In fact, this is true because they want challenging teaching. So this challenge has to be created unless you put them in the same thing in a different fashion, which is not available otherwise. Then only the student will be interested in attending your class and he will take interest in that. And the ABC, what he was talking of, yes, we have already created that multiple entry, multiple exit. We have already created in our course curriculum. So the next 1 year, in fact, next 3 years, we will be following. We have started following from 1st December 2020 itself in the new course curriculum. So I can tell you that we are very much on the move. And of course, this pandemic has, yes, there is one point, because some of the branches required some of the hands-on working with the machines, working with the designs and some of the things which the students would have benefited better had they been there physically. But yes, that is one. The laboratory classes are the ones which are actually taking a back seat, and there we are worried about that. But hopefully that when the situation improves, we will bring them and we will give them modular courses of those laboratories so that they don't miss at all. And whenever they have to use it, they will be able to utilize. So this is the one thing which is missing. But otherwise, I think I'm saying that the course which we have changed about 9 months back, I think this is going to be there for next 3 months. And we are very much online. Thank you.
There are lots of questions. There are 5 odd comments, but I'll take one question that is coming from Amit Gupta, which I think is very relevant to today's day. What is panel's view on work-integrated degree programs in partnership with corporates? Raghav, first you, and then I'll bring in an educationist on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was this other comment also about industry's role in curriculum design as well as in education in general, right? And again, I have the benefit of some data, so I can share that. Today on the Coursera platform, we have 55 companies who've created content. They've created 650 courses, and these 650 courses have been taken by 11 million people. So we already see that companies, like Google and IBM, who are in the technology domain, or companies like Facebook, or, in social media, or companies like Salesforce, which is a tech, but a sales and marketing company, are creating content. And I want to link this to the point I was making earlier, that for most of us in the industry today, learning software tools is integral to our jobs. And we will increasingly find that as the role of software companies in our lives grow, we will find that industry has a larger role to play in the world of academia going forward as well. That's what we're definitely seeing with the data from our platform.
Thank you so much. My colleague Vasudha is there. Vasudha, if you'd like to ask a few questions, please switch on the camera, or you want to do it in audio format. Go ahead, ask the panelists your questions.
Hello, panelists. And can I just start by saying it is an absolute honor and privilege to be here with all of you, and also apologize for my lack of presence here. We're having a lot of power cuts in Pune, and the Wi-Fi is a very precious commodity right now, as you all may know. So, I was listening to this panel, and, we talk a lot about the educators and the students and trying to get them both on board with the new education system, but not new really, let's just say transitioning, evolving education system. I want to ask you, how do we do that with parents? Because, we are so much influenced by all the people around us.
It's funny that in all the conversations, I've never talked about parents. I talk about education providers. We talk about technology content providers. We talk about students. We talk about teachers. But, Vasudha, funnily enough, I've never talked about parents. So thank you for bringing that angle.
I think it's, all of us know what it's like. Our parents play such an important role in our most basic of education, right? So how are we going to bring them into this? How are we going to bring them on board? How are we, who is thinking about this? Yes, sorry. Please go ahead, speak.
Yeah. So, possibly Dr. Sancheti, why don't you take this, and then I'll take this to everyone, Professor Nagaraj, Professor Tiwari, and Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy. So how do we make sure parents expectations from education are right. Your parents are also wanting to chase a degree because they come from that kind of thinking. So how do you make sure parents' expectations from education also keep pace with what's happening around? By the way, students or young learners dictate what their parents want. Not necessarily parents have a point of view, but in some cases, I would say they will have a point of view.
Anuragji, I have a slightly different view, and that was the reason I was not necessarily keen to answer it first. But in any case, you have triggered it. So I would like to say that I think it should be a hands-off approach from the parents. The duty of parents should be not to indulge too much into what the student wants to learn, because in first year, he may have certain direction, while going into second year, he may change slightly, third year again. Let them explore what they want to learn rather than force them to learn something which either parents or teachers want. We both behave similarly in terms of what we want to deliver. I think we should change that. The parents' role is to facilitate what a student or their kid wants to do. After doing engineering also, they become IAS, they become forest conservationists, or they become the film directors, or they do a business in food industry. Anything can be done. So parents should not necessarily force. Parents' highest duty is to allow them to explore all the vistas which they would like to explore rather than dump their dreams on the kids of 18 years. When they were 15, 16, entering into colleges, I understand there was difficulty. When there was no knowledge and internet available and guidance available, mentoring available, I understand there was a difficulty. Most of the parents do things by hearsay, by what the peer group is doing, what the neighborhood, or they may come to a Sandeep Sancheti and whatever they say. I had to fight with some parents that, look, I will give you as much information as you want from me for your own kid, but I will not take his decision because he was imposing on me that you take a decision and he'll do exactly what Professor Sancheti said. I think that's a wrong notion we have developed, and that's where many of the students are uncomfortable. So that's my take in relationship.
Professor Tiwari, your point of view?
Yes. In fact, I fully agree with what he said because I have examples. In the last 30 years that I'm here, right from 40 years, you can say, because I did my education also in this institute. So I can tell you that this is one factor which is, in fact, creating more stress on the students. Oh, I can tell you with examples, which I don't want to say public here, but I know that the student wanted to read physics, but the parents wanted to read in order to put their collar up in the society that my son is reading computer science because he has got a very high rank, but he was interested in quantum physics. He wanted to read physics. He wanted to become a big physicist like that. But and I can tell you, if the fellow is employed, he's there, but still he has a feeling that, well, I wanted to read physics. Even we have a faculty member who, when I wanted to him, what is wrong with you? He's an electrical engineer. But he says that, sir, can you allow me to teach in physics? I said, most welcome. So he's so happy. He said that last 5 years, nobody allowed. I am so happy. So I can tell you that, yes, the parents have to now compromise here that it is the life of the student. They think that I will cover the life of the student right from class 6 to 12 up to education and even up to job and beyond that, which in fact, if you ask them, they had no such mentoring from their own parents. This is a very key thing that you have to see. Now today, and I have seen that if there is need to educate the parents as well. So when I talk to the students, I ask also the parents to please listen. And also I say that if you have any question, please ask, because you have a greater role in the growth and development of your son or daughter. And therefore, I think there is a need for education of these parents also with a very humble way, with a very friendly way that, see, after all, your son, if he wants to become something in life, please ask him what he wants to become. Because they say that, no, he knows nothing. But I think it is wrong. These fellows...
I think I have two teenager children, so I can tell you they clearly have their own point of view.
Absolutely,
At best, you can support in their choice and guide them, but they have they have their own very independent point of view.
I tell you, they will be very independent and they will do better. In fact, my own father was a professor here, but he said, do whatever you feel like. And all of my brothers, we are well settled. He said that you are the person who will make your own destiny. He himself is a professor here, but he said, so I believe that what Sancheti said should be that the parents should be educated with a friendly way.
Thank you, Vasudha, for bringing in that angle. Raghav, your comment on this before I bring Professor Sundar Ramaswamy.
Yeah, I can add a brief, quick comment, and this is on the lighter side as well, and I'll answer this as a parent, right? So I have a son who's 19 years old. He's gone to college last year. And, I'm managing director of Coursera. You would imagine I know a little bit about online education. And I said to him last year, I said, Ishan, I want to talk to you about online education and courses. And he said, yeah, tell me, what would you like to know? So I think that one answer kind of encapsulates it, right? Today's kids know what they need to know, right? He said to me, tell me what you'd like to know. So I think it's for parents to allow them the flexibility in the space to decide a little bit of what they want to do. But I think today's children are very well informed.
Absolutely. Professor Sundar Ramaswamy, you worked in the US, you built an institution here. What is the difference in the approaches of institution builders and various stakeholders? Can you bring that nuanced difference into the discussion, sir?
That's a huge, tall order question, Anurag. I was going to attempt the answer to the parents' question because I do have a take on that.
They're both linked. Go ahead.
Having dealt with parents both in the US and here, parents are also not a monolithic block. I mean, they are very different. The differences are because of their own temperament, how they were brought up. Class plays a role, whether they are from the city or tier one. And I'm saying this both from the US and from dealing with parents here. I do think that parents need to be brought along the journey to tell them what a Kriya is or what an IIT is. I think we can't keep the parents far away and say, let the kids do what they want. I think parents of this generation, my experience, it doesn't matter what background is, they want to know what their children is. But I think I agree with Dr. Sancheti that we need to sort of walk the parents in a way that allows the kids to explore, because that is the 21st century. But the other thing that I exhort parents, and I hold all of us responsible as society, right? We all want to be taught by good teachers and good professors, but how many of us want our children to become professors, right? So one of the things I always challenge parents is please don't denigrate education. Don't say if you become a teacher in a high school or in a college, it's because you didn't get anything else. And I think I want to leave parents with that exhortation that being a faculty member, being a teacher in a school, being a professor is very noble. It pays well. But if you cannot have this hope that your child will be taught by good faculty, but you don't want your child to become a faculty member, how then the pool of faculty disappears? And we all have hired faculty. This is the most difficult challenge in building institutions, is getting a very steady supply of high quality faculty, because it takes a long time to get a degree and PhDs and so on. So I do think parents can play a role of not saying, okay, kuch nahi hota, so then you become a teacher. I think they should be front and center. If a student or a child has an aptitude for being a teacher or a faculty member, then encourage them, inspire them, and don't say, go be a doctor or an engineer. You don't get anything, then fine, go and pick up a job as teaching. And I think colleges are okay. High schools are even worse. I think that would be my one plea for all parents.
Fantastic. Beautiful point. Professor Nagaraj, final point.
Sir, before moving on, may I also make a small comment about this?
Yes, Vasudha, go ahead.
Of the parents, because this was no way meant to attack anyone. Just to say that, you mentioned your different tier cities. And, a lot of people are just not in the position to have their children be studying, history or philosophy and, go on with their studies. They need them to be doing jobs. And that's just a very, unfortunately, that's a reality, right, for a lot of people. So in that case, yes, we want students to explore what they're good at, but also at some point, we also need them to be practical.
So Vasudha, I can give you one very practical example. I have a student who's wonderful in literature, but it also depends on whether the institution allows most choice-based electives and the ability to do a major and a minor and those kinds of things. But she also discovered that she has a passion for coding. So there are ways in which you can mix and match, because as we all know, students are continuing to blossom at 18, 19, 20, 21. It's not like they come as finished products to us. So my point is the system has to allow them to explore. Parents also have to allow them. And so, yes, it goes back to the earlier point about giving them some ability to get a job. But I think there's so much more than just getting a job that I think all of us have been talking about. And I think we shouldn't ignore the fact, and that's my point, that there are parents who have really have hardship stories to tell me, saying, ye kya karegi if she just does a history major? And I have to tell them there are history majors who go and do wonderful things in life, whether they become an IAS officer or something. And so parents sometimes have to also be educated on what are the various opportunities and how we can prepare a student for what they want to get in life.
Right, absolutely. And I think this is where the counseling comes in, that it shouldn't just be for the children, but something that you do all together.
Yeah, Professor Nagaraj, your final point of view before we call it a day.
See, I have a different take overall here in terms of, because I subtly brought it when I spoke about in terms of any graduation must lead to gainful employment. And also I spoke about the aspirations of all the stakeholders. We need to look this into two different scenarios. One is the students coming from the urban background where parents are maybe in a different capacity to give those freedoms to their children in terms of deciding what they want to do, versus the people who are coming from a rural background where job becomes very, very important. So keeping these two things in mind, parents definitely play a major role. As one of my fellow panelists pointed out, we need to educate parents, but how far are they going to appreciate that, and how far shall they take it forward is for them to decide, because for us being in India, volume is always a big problem, and we need to, cater to the volume as it comes. And definitely we do have all those counseling sessions, admission sessions, whenever the students come for admissions to university. All the universities have various counselors present who would help the student, help the parent in deciding on the type of course, deciding on the stream that the student must get into, depending on what he has done earlier and versus what the student is trying to express. With all this, most of the time, I as administrator have seen that parents try to prevail upon the student aspiration and try to push them into what they want their son or daughter to do. Keeping this in mind, as I said, we need to look at this into two different spectrums altogether, urban versus rural, educated parent versus parent who is not well informed. So these, I think, we have a role to play there, and that is how the universities which are situated in the rural precincts of this country need to involve parents in all those decision makings, need to educate them in terms of what are the various career perspectives available to the career prospects available to the students, and also tell them what their child wants. So that is where the universities has a role to play.
Fantastic. I think we had a good discussion, and I think it's been a different point of view. We started on a very philosophical note from Professor Ramaswamy, and I'd love to chat up with him on how he built Kriya maybe another day. We planned it to do it immediately after that, and we can do it. But he's on a day that he has other things on his mind which are very important. He's made time. So thank you, Dr. Ramaswamy. Thank you, Dr. Sancheti. Thank you, Mr. Raghavutta. Thank you, Dr. Virendra Kumar Tiwari. Thank you, Professor Nagaraj. There were complementary viewpoints, but there were also unique viewpoints. So really, I think I learned something from the conversation today. And I'd like to sum up by saying that clearly education is about learning. It's about employability. Both have to go hand on hand with each other, because for a set of students, employability, as Vasudha said, may be very, very important in the context of where they come from, who they are. But learning must be enhanced through new course content, and it should lead to employability. And Raghav shared the kind of courses that Coursera is bringing in, and the shift from skills to attitude-based courses, if I may say, to softer skills, which we would traditionally call soft skills. But that is evident in data. So clearly, educational institutions in India are leveraging the power of technology, the power of content, and their historical heritage as institutions to be able to be relevant for all the stakeholders in the society, especially the students and the recruiters. So thank you so much for tuning into this BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. I'd also like to invite you to a partnered webinar that we are doing couple of weeks from now. So I know in 15 months to have 100 plus people on Zoom and another 600-700 on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook shows that there is value in content. So to this audience, we'd also like to share an event that we are doing in partnership with Adobe, the Adobe EduConnect, and because it may be relevant for all of you. So it's more relevant for K-12, I would like to say that, but at the end of the day, you all are interested in education. So if Prerna and the BW team, we can quickly show that just before we end so that the audiences can take note. If not, you can mail them. I don't want to keep these very important leaders. They've taken out time from their personal and professional schedule to be with us. So we're grateful to you. Once again, Professor Nagaraj, thank you so much. Dr. Virendra Kumar Tiwari, Mr. Raghav Gupta, Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, and last but not the least, Dr. Sundar Ramaswamy. Thank you so much. And we look forward to more interaction with you. And Raghav will link up with you on your study so that we can editorially take it to our stakeholders. We are in the content business and content gets us audiences. So clearly we'd like to, I think Vasudha and Priya will link up with you to be able to take that forward. Thank you so much. If we're in a position to show that, we should show that. Otherwise, I'd like to end the BW Wednesday Wisdom webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.